All right, cool. Well, we will go ahead and get started. So let me go ahead and pop over to positive physics. And apologies, there's a lot going on my screen. But yeah, thank you guys again for joining. I'd love to make this as useful as possible. So I know some of you haven't used the site before, so I want to start at the very beginning. And then I'll quickly go through what it looks like to use positive physics as a student, then flip over to the teacher perspective, and then give you plenty of time to ask for questions. Just a heads up that this is going to be recorded, because I promised a lot of teachers that I'd share it with them later. So if you want to have your camera off, that's perfectly fine, but this will be recorded and shared later, and hope that's okay. Cool. So the very first thing is if you're new to positive physics and haven't created an account already, you can start by clicking on create account or start free trial. They'll both take you to the same spot. I'm gonna go over the just very basic things right here. Enter like the basic info. The one thing to really keep in mind is this class code. So the class code is what you'll provide to your students that will allow them to link their account with yours. Oh, and please do feel free to put questions in the chat anytime that you want. Yeah, it's best if it is more of a conversation than just me talking, just kind of similar to the way I liked it in my classroom. Cool. So once you have a class code, you'll just give that to your students. And I'm going to create a student account because there are just a couple things to keep in mind as your students create their account. So have your students click on create account, and I'm a student / learner. Make sure that they click yes, that they're joining your class and not just an independent student. Then they'll enter your class code. I made a dummy one for this session, and they'll click on validate. And then we just ask for their username and their password. So we don't ask for student names or email addresses just because privacy reasons. We want to collect as little information about students as possible. But we highly recommend having your students put in their last name and first initial. Respect if you know why I always use that as last name and first initial, and then put in a password and a section. So right now, the only option is section 1. I'll show you from the teacher end how to activate additional sections. So once a student signs up, and anytime a teacher or a student log in, they'll land on the dashboard right here. So yeah, real quick, I get a lot of questions from teachers like, how do I get started? How do I set up an assignment? Well, the assignments are actually already set up for you. So all you could literally just have your students sign up, and then you can have them click right here, and that's how they can access these questions. We offer both physics and chemistry with engineering and some other things on the way. And then we offer all of these units for the physics and the chemistry. We have them loosely based on the fundamentals that are required for AP Physics 1, although we actually have a lot of AP Physics C. Teachers use it as well, and we're getting closer to covering everything for AP Physics 2. There are 3 modes. The work mode, that's what I use with my students for homework and classwork. Extra practice is a study mode, and then assessment is for assessments, of course. So cool. We really pride ourselves in taking what I call complete problems. So traditional problems. This is our forces unit, by the way. And so this is a problem where a student would be given forces, finding an acceleration. And we truly try to take questions like this and break them down into bite-sized pieces to really meet students on their level. And so one example of this is our free body diagram analysis skill. So I'll go into a little more depth on this lesson. So each one of these lessons starts with a video and key points. We have a reference sheet here with equations and definitions, and then we dive into the questions right here. Adriana, I see your question. I'll get to it in just a second. So every student gets random numbers in their problems. So students can share answers with each other, or can share strategies with each other, but they can't share answers. And it's been really cool how it's changed my classroom from students asking each other for answers to really asking each other, oh, how do I do this? We always use real world examples and give students plenty of practice. So as a student starts practicing their right answers will turn green, and wrong answers will turn red, but can be corrected. And I'll get to the two questions in the chat in just a second. If you were looking in the upper right-hand corner, you'd notice that the completion score goes up anytime I get something right, even if I've gotten it wrong previously. And then the accuracy score, it only goes up if I get something right on the first try. So this is a summary of the kind of homework and the classwork mode of positive physics. And to get to those questions real quick. So Adriana said, are the lessons aligned with the New York State Regents curriculum? Not specifically, but we made sure we have enough topics in there that's covering pretty much anything you could want in your physics class. But if there's something specific that you're asking for, just let me know and I will can definitely tell you if we already have it. And Jasmine asked, can you get the video? Yeah, no problem. I'm going to send the video out to everyone after this. Cool. So usually I have my students work from the top all the way down. We start each lesson with a review. And then we have an inquiry activity. So it usually uses a PhET simulation or data where students don't need any, they're figuring out the concepts by experimenting, figuring out the equations. And then we dive into kind of these building block skills before we get to what I call complete problems and then challenge problems at the end. All right, real quick, that is a really whirlwind tour of the homework and classwork mode, and would love to pause for just a second to see if anyone has any questions. And probably the easiest way to do that is just put them in the chat, and I'll pause for just a sec. All right, cool. So the next thing I wanted to show you was the extra practice mode. But before we do, you'll notice that in that lesson that we just looked at, free body diagram analysis, there were 17 questions. So if I now go over to the extra practice mode, and this is what I use to allow students to study. Usually I say like, okay, I grade on my completion score, but if their accuracy score is low, I say use the extra practice and you can get more practice with those problems. So in this one, it now just says 3 questions right here. So it's going to randomly pick 3 questions from those 17. All right, a question real quick said, is there a feature that allows us to create our own questions? So not yet, but, and I don't want to, we like to underpromise and over-deliver, but I'll tell you that is something that we're working on right now, is a feature to allow you to create your own questions. And just like we have with random numbers in there. So you'd put in a range of numbers instead of hard coding in a specific number. But yeah, no promises on exactly when that will arrive, but hopefully in the coming months, you'll see that feature. All right, so on the extra practice, if I click on here, it's now just going to give me 3 questions like the ones that I saw previously. And once again, if I get something right, sorry, lots of Zoom stuff in my way. Right answers turn green, but this time a wrong answer turns red. And I can't fix it. So this is like practice for a quiz. I can't fix it until I get to the last question. Click finalize. And then go back here, and then I can fix it. And you'll notice that in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see an original score as well as a correction score. And so once I start making corrections, once I finalize, only that correction score goes up. This is because we treat this extra practice like it's like a practice quiz. All right, and then the last thing on the student side is the assessment. And by default, the assessment is locked, but I'm going to flip over to, I have a dummy teacher account where I can now unlock this assessment. And now coming back as a student, the assessment is unlocked. By the way, this is new this year. For those of you who have used the site before, when you unlock the assessment, the work and the extra practice will automatically gray out. So they won't be accessible while the assessment is in progress. All right, so before I click on the assessment right here, and this is all customizable from the teacher end, which I'll show you in a little bit. This assessment is going to grab 2 embedded math problems, 2 free body diagram drawing problems, 3 from the next skill, etc., all the way down through the complete problems and the challenge, and put it into one assessment. I know I got a question on the when somebody was filling out the form, and they said, how do you give a secure assessment without a lockdown browser? So we do a couple things. Is one, I gave my assessments during class, which I highly recommend. And I just made sure I didn't have to watch my students closely. I just kind of had to be behind them and make sure, like, eyes on, I could glance at their screens if I needed to. We do make the top bar black while they're in assessment, so you can tell if they've left the assessment to go to something else. So just make sure that the top bar is black. And that really handled it pretty well for my students. And like I said, we did make it where they can't go back to the dashboard and look at their homework and extra practice. All right, so as we go through the assessment, I'll start here. Once again, this is just like the extra practice mode that I showed you, where right answers turn green. They can see their scores going up as they get answers right, and wrong answers turn red. And once again, once they get to the end, they can fix those and then come back, and you'll see that their correction score starts to go up. All right. All right. Adriana said, can you make your own assignments? Yeah, I'll show you that from the teacher end in just a second. And Tanya said, do you make your students turn in a piece of paper with their work? And yeah, so Tanya, what I ended up doing, I'll show you this in a little bit. You can print out the homework problems, and I'll show you how to do that. And I had them turn it in and gave them a grade for their score on the dashboard, like their score, their online score and their showing their work score. I gave them 2 separate grades for that. Cool. Real quick before I flip over to the teacher side, did anybody have any questions about, that was a whirlwind tour of the student experience? All right, so I will go ahead and jump over to the teacher side. All right, so the first thing I wanted to show you on the teacher side is after you create your account, the first thing that I would do is go to settings. So when you create your account as a teacher, you'll land on a very similar page to what your students landed on. So the dashboard looks very similar, except that you have the ability to like change the status of something, but it looks just like a student's. You can go in and you can preview all the lessons and questions right here. So you can go through, look at the video, look at the notes, look at all the questions, even do the questions yourself. Unlike students, you'll have a restart button, you'll have a show answers button, you'll have a remove problem button. So as a teacher, you can go in and see exactly what your students are going to see. But I would also, the first thing, you can click right here for settings or go teacher settings, is I would go in and activate the sections that you teach. So if I teach first, third, and fourth periods, set those to active. You'll notice there it says active standard or active advanced. Not a big deal which one you choose. We have some what are called challenge skills, which are intended for honors and AP students. So those by default will appear in the dashboard if you click advanced. If they're standard, they'll be at the bottom and they'll say bonus. But you can flip this back and forth anytime and adjust it, and you won't lose any student work or anything like that. The other things that if you're a physics teacher, you'll want to set these immediately is the notation. So if you're teaching a conceptual class, or I saw some lower level students, you can use Scalar Mode. And so in this mode, they'll use simplified notation and all of the answers will be positive. Or if you're teaching AP or honors, I'd recommend vector magnitude or vector. With the small difference there is in vector magnitude, we always ask for the absolute value. Students won't even be able to insert negative numbers. But in vector mode, if you have a quantity where the object is moving left or moving downwards and it asks for the velocity, then we require putting in a negative. We use positive is up and right always. So recommend scalar for like conceptual or lower level students, and then vector magnitude or vector for on grade level honors or AP. And then also one thing you'll want to do from the start is just choose your preference for gravity, which I always think is funny, but choose whether you want to use 9.8 or 10 or however strong gravity is in your classroom. All right. One other small thing that's new this year is we have an equation sheet. And if you teach lower level students, you can put yes to show manipulated equations. What that means is on your equation sheet, you will not only have F net equals MA, but you'll have A equals F net divided by M and all the pre-manipulated equations. So by default, we set that's set to no. But if you want to help out lower level students, you can set that to yes for certain sections. All right. All right, cool. I have a few questions behind in the chat, but I will get to those in just a second. All right, so Adriana said, can you make your own assignment? So right now the questions are preset into like everything we have in complete problems 1. The problems that are in there can't be moved in and out of there. But I'm not sure if that's what you're asking or if you're asking, can you assign them? So if you want to assign like this section to be due at a certain time, you'll click on unlock on that unlock button to modify it, and you can set a due date. Let's say I wanted it set for tomorrow at 9 a.m. All right, and then that'll pop up right here on the student's dashboard. They will now see that it locks August 11th at 9 a.m. And then to get to Tanya's question, do you make your students turn in a piece of paper with their work on it? Yep. That's one of the teacher features I wanted to show you. So if I go to teacher, print work problems, I usually make them show their work for, let's go to unit 5, the forces one I was showing you. I make them show their work on the review and the complete problems and the challenge if I'm having them do challenge problems, but not the multiple choice ones. And when I click print right here, it's going to generate a PDF. And you'll notice that where we used to have, where you expect to see numbers, sometimes it's a little slow, especially if I do it well on Zoom. Where you expect to see numbers, there'll be a blank, and students will fill in the blanks that go with theirs, because of course every student, as we mentioned, gets different numbers in their problems. All right. All right, so I got a question. How long does it usually take for each section to be done by your students based on your experience? Yeah, good question. So I always forget to mention that one. So for the student, I'd say it usually takes a week and a half, roughly a week and a half to get through an entire unit. So first day, I do an inquiry. I have them do the review on their own. And then I cover 1 to 2 of these skills every day, do a lab at the end, and then give a quiz on the last day. And that is usually a week and a half to 2 weeks for the longer units. All right, I'm talking about making your own quizzes and tests. Yeah, so let me show you everything that you can customize from the teacher dashboard real quick. So that transitions nicely. Just let me sign out here, and I'll sign back in as the teacher so I don't have the 2 tabs thing. All right, so back to here. Yeah, so let me show you all the kind of to answer that question about from Adriana about making your own quizzes and tests. Let me just show you everything that you can customize. So I already showed you how to assign a due date. You can also click on these to just lock the skill if you don't want students to do it yet, to remove it if you don't want students to see it at all. You can make it bonus. That means students can see it, but it won't count towards their total score at the bottom of the dashboard. So that's kind of how you can customize the work. You can also go into the skills and remove individual problems. Well, let me focus on the dashboard first. Then in the extra practice, you can do the same things like locking and unlocking, and you can also set the number of problems that they see. So I think this is getting to Adriana's question about the quizzes. So if I go right here, I can not only like unlock the skill, but I can set how many problems I want to show up from each skill. So if I want 11 math problems to show up for the students, or let's say 7 math problems to show up for the students, I can change the number of problems that it pulls from each skill. And remember, it'll pull problems from every skill to create the assessment. If you don't want any problems to show up from a certain skill, you can just set it to 0. And then no problems from the complete problems 1 will show up on, will show up. All right, Rhonda said, how do you assign to the students? The entire unit or just the first 3 sections, then assign the next section? Yeah, really good question. So I think a lot of different teachers do this in different ways. So some teachers do like assign the assignments 1 by 1. I would actually just assign the whole unit, in part because I didn't want to put in a ton of grades. And so I would just put in their entire unit average at the end. So I would just make everything due on the last day that I wanted it. And then I would just put in this whole completion grade at the end. I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but I also, on the homework and classwork, I recommend grading on completion and just using the accuracy score to tell students that that's what they need to study more. If you want to assign everything at once, instead of clicking on each thing individually, you can click on batch lock assign skills, select everything, and then assign a due date there. And that'll lock all of those skills at the same time. Cool. Let's see. So a couple other things. Manage rosters just lets you see all of your students. If a student changes their section, you can adjust it here. If they typed in like their first initial and then their last name, you can change their username right there as well. Rhonda said, will you show me how to print one more time? Yeah, so just click on teacher, print work problems, select the unit that you want to print. Then you can, again, I recommend like just printing out the ones they really need to show work on, which are usually the complete problems, the challenge, and the review. And then just click on print right here. Sometimes it takes a second to load this, so I'm not actually going to click print. All right. Cool. Other things, I've showed you the settings, and so kind of the last thing to show you is the student scores. So as a teacher, you can really see, like in a bunch of different ways, their student scores. This is a dummy account, so there's obviously not much in here. By default, you're seeing what they have done on the entire unit. But you can also look at how they're doing on individual skills. So if I go down to free body diagram analysis 1, that's where at the start of the demo, I did one complete problem from here. So, and also if I click on this, I can actually see what the student has done. So I can see the numbers that they input. The yellow outline along there means, oh, that's what they got. They got that one wrong on their first try. All right, cool. So that is a whirlwind tour of positive physics. I'd love to open it up for questions. Feel free to type it in the chat, or even if you're brave, unmute yourself and feel free to ask a question out loud.
Jack, do we have a resource like if we can't work that problem out to get the correct answer?
Good, yeah, good question. So the first thing that I would do is just, you can use the reveal answers button and that'll show you the answer to the question. But if you're still struggling on how to get it and like the video is not helpful or something, I'm the resource. So
Okay.
feel
Right.
free. And really, like, I write back really, really fast. I think people who've used the site can attest to it. My email address is right here. And I love hearing from people, whether you're reporting a mistake or giving feedback or just have a answer or a question on a particular question.
Great.
Email me anytime. I'm always happy to help.
Well, that's what I was told. That's why I bought it.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Yeah, any all right. Michael got the John Morant reference. So I taught in Memphis, so that's why. Any suggestions regarding math support like trig use? Michael, can you elaborate a little bit more on like what would you mean by math support? My mind is going to like, how do you have like suggestions for trig with lower level learners, or could you clarify what you mean by that?
Yeah, specifically especially dealing with conceptual physics, that framework. A lot of our kids may or may not have some trig, but you do projectile motion, for example. I love it. So the question is, how do you support them if they have not had that yet? Or is there anything else that you do to help them?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me show you this real quick. So /physics. So you can turn this off for your students if they don't need this. But if you go to this is the reference sheet, it shows up at the start of each skill. And if you click on trig and, oh, we're going to add a diagram right there. But the first thing I do is I go to the settings and I've turned on the manipulations for this. That's why they're showing up. So now these are pre-manipulated, so that students see, like, they don't have to do the algebra for this. And I highly recommend just watching the video on how we do trigonometry. So if you go to, when you get to the projectile motion unit, yeah, just check out the video on this. And we just start by label your sides HO and A, and then you need 2 given to solve the triangle out of the 3 sides in the angle, and then give them the manipulated equations. And I've had students who came to me on a very, very low math level have trigonometry actually be their favorite part of the course. All right. Adriana said, is this good for AP Physics 1? Also, how much is it? Oh, yeah, good question. Let me make sure I answer that part. Yeah, so the pricing, I'll do that first. The pricing, to look at it, go to the home page and then click on, sorry, so many Zoom controls in my way. I can't even get to it right now, but click on request a quote. So right now it's on sale for 1 teacher and unlimited students. It's $2.99 if your school pays for it. But I want to be super clear on this. I built it out of my classroom for teachers and students. If your school won't pay for it, we just say pay us whatever you want, pay us whatever you can afford. If that's $20, that's fine. If it's $100, that's great. But if your school can't afford it, the price is whatever you decide it is. All right. Oh yeah, somebody's asking for permission to leave. Sure thing. Yeah, no problem. Feel free to hop off anytime. I won't be offended, but please do reach out to me anytime if you have questions. You can also always click on schedule a demo, and that'll automatically sign up with 15 minutes with me.
Hey, Jack, could you tell me about chemistry? Because that's how I'm using your tool.
Yeah, for sure. So I built the physics content and my colleague built the chemistry one. So I'm a little more, I know the physics one inside and out, but the chemistry is going to be very similar. So if you go to chemistry here, it starts with density, which is just, I know it's not the most common way to start it, but it's a really good one to get students like in the habit of being able to solve things, and then goes through. Very similarly to the physics, each unit is going to have a video that starts here. One new thing this year is on questions on skills where like there are not numerical, we've shuffled the order of the questions just to cut down on cheating there. Was there anything specific that you had a question on the chemistry?
I was looking at the pacing because I noticed that when you pulled the drop down, it has the semester. How long for each one of the sections would you give time for?
Yeah, let me
in order
actually
to get all the way finished.
Yeah, let me double check with our chemistry content writer, and then I will get back to you on that one. Is that all right?
That's perfect. I just want to start the year off right. I used this last year in conjunction with something else I was using. So I'm trying to go more focused just with this particular tool. And I need to know more about pacing as far as the sections.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, I will definitely follow up with that. By the way, Zoom's going to kick us out in 2 minutes. I'm going to hop back on the same link if anybody has additional questions afterwards. But I did want to answer, somebody asked about AP1. So we are going to do another webinar next week with 2 teachers who had awesome scores on AP1 using positive physics in conjunction with AP Classroom. So the preview for that is that they use positive physics as one of them called it easy mode. And so like they make sure their students know the stuff on positive physics because that makes sure they know the fundamentals. And then after they like get through the positive physics unit, then they hop over and use the stuff off AP Classroom. And yep, somebody asked if they said heavy rains is having trouble with their connection. I will definitely get you the recording. I'll send that to everybody as well. Oh yeah, and Lisa asked if I could send her a certificate of attendance. I will send that to you as soon as we're done here. Adriana said $299 per year. Yep, that's the price if you teach 3 or more classes. If your school can pay for it. Again, if your school can't pay for it and you're paying out of your own pocket, that's incredibly generous of you. And just pay us whatever you can afford and you think is a reasonable price. All right. Cool. Rhonda, I got you as well. If you guys don't mind, if you need a certificate of attendance, please shoot me an email and so I can remember to do that. All right. Zoom again is going to kick us out momentarily, but I will happily hop right back on the same link if anyone has further questions and wants to do so in a smaller group setting. Bruce, yeah, if you don't mind hopping on, I want to answer that question as well. All right. Thanks again, guys. If you can hop on, I'll see you on the same link in just a second. If you can't, thank you so much for joining. And as I mentioned before, we really want to make sure